In this video, we're going to review some of the skills that we need to deal with fractions and algebraic fractions. So for this first question, we must ask ourselves, is there a highest common factor that we can factorize out? And if we take a look at the numerator here, we can see that 2 is a common factor. So I can take 2 out. We ask the same question of ourselves about the denominator. And there isn't a highest common factor, but there is something special about it. It is a square number, take away another square number, and when we have that in maths, we have a rule, and it is the difference of two squares, and that will go to x minus y, x plus y. And in this scenario, we have the multiplication of x plus y on the top and the multiplication of it on the bottom. If we're multiplying on the bottom, it's actually dividing. So I've divide and multiply by the exact same thing. And when that happens in maths, you have doing and undoing. And if that happens, then what can happen is they'll undo each other and they drop out. So we're left with just 2 all over x minus y. For question 2, once again, we have to ask ourselves, is there a highest common factor? And if we look at the numerator again, we can see that b is a common factor. So we're going to have b, and it's going to leave us with a plus b in the brackets, all over a squared minus b squared, which is a square number, take away another square number, and when that happens, we can factorize it to a minus b, a plus b. Once again, here we have multiplication of a plus b on the top, and it's multiplied in on the bottom. If it's on the bottom, it's dividing, and if it's dividing and multiplying, well, those are going to drop out. They're doing and undoing. So we're just left with b on the top and a minus b on the bottom. For question 3, the same question again. Is there a highest common factor that I could take out? If we look at the numerator here, what we have is 15x squared plus 5x, highest common factor 5x. That leaves us with 3x plus 1 on the top, and on the bottom we have a highest common factor as well, right? So we've got a highest common factor of 5. If I do that, I'm going to be left with 3x, and then I'm going to be left with plus 3x squared plus 4x plus 1. Now, ask ourselves at this stage, can I do more with that on the bottom? Because that is a quadratic, and I do have a tool, or have the tools to be able to factorize that further. So we're left with 5x into 3x plus 1 on the top, and on the bottom we have 5 into this quadratic. Now quadratics can be broken into two factors, and I can break them into two factors by focusing on the 3x squared first. So what are my two factors of 3x squared? We like to have an x at the start of each of our brackets, so I have 3x and x. After that, then we are going to look at the factors of plus 1, and the factors of plus 1, nice and easy, are just 1 by 1 or minus 1 by minus 1. But because this is a plus here and a plus here, it must be both positive. That there is the quadratic factorized. So now I'm going to look out for those doing and undoing parts of the question. So is there anything that is multiplying in on the top and multiplied on the bottom, making it division? There is. We have 5. 5 is being multiplied in and then divided in by the denominator there. And also we have 3x plus 1 divided in and multiplied in. So those are going to undo each other in the end. So we're left with x on the top all over, and we're only left with x plus 1 on the bottom. Question 4 here involves the multiplication of two fractions. So before you start to multiply, I would always look for the factors to break it down and simplify it as much as I can before I start to get into the nitty-gritty of the multiplication. So I'm going to ask myself the same questions again. Is there a highest common factor? And if I look here, there is. there is a common factor of 2x. If I take 2x out, I'm left with x cubed minus 125. On the bottom, I'm going to ask the same question. Do I have a highest common factor? I do. I'm going to have 4x as the highest common factor, leaving me with x minus 5 in the brackets here. On the top here, there's no second part to the term or the expression, so I'm just going to leave it as 4x for now, all over 2. And what I would do next is ask myself, is there more that I could do with that? And actually, if you take a look, there's an x cubed minus 125. That is actually, and could actually be represented as x cubed minus 5 cubed. And that there is a cubed number, take away another cubed number. And we do have a tool for managing that and for dealing with that. It's the difference of 2 cubes. So that could be written as x minus 5 into x squared plus 5x plus 25. And then on the bottom here, I've not made any changes, so I'll just leave it as 4x, x minus 5 by 4x all over 2. Now what I'm going to take a look at is there anything that is doing and then undoing? So if I look, I've got x minus 5 multiplied in on the top. It's also multiplied in on the bottom, making it a division. So it's going to eliminate each other. Then I have 4x here and 4x here. So one thing to note, when you're multiplying fractions, it's top by top and bottom by bottom. So what we have here is 4x being multiplied into the top and 4x being multiplied into the bottom. So those are going to end up undoing each other. I also have a 2 being multiplied in on the top and multiplied in on the bottom. And so what we're left with, if you look at all that, everything that has kind of undone each other and dropped out, we're just left with x squared plus 5x all over 25. Part 5 here involves the division of two fractions, and immediately what you can do when you're dividing fractions by each other is follow this rule, keep, change, flip. And what that means is that we're going to keep the first fraction the same. We're going to change the division to multiplication, and I'm going to flip the second fraction. So if I do that, I'm going to have x squared minus x minus 2 all over x squared minus 3x. I'm going to change this to multiplication, and I'm then going to have to flip this fraction over here. So flipping that means change what the numerator and denominator are. So I'm going to change to x squared minus x minus 6 all over x squared plus 5x plus 4. And once I've that done, my KCF, now I'm back to the same question as we had in question 4. So I'm going to factorize as much as I can before I start to multiply. This here is a quadratic, and to factorize quadratics, you've got your two brackets. At the start of each bracket, you put your x and x. 2 and 1 are my factors of 2, but it's minus 2, which means that it must have 1 minus and 1 plus. How do I know which way the sign should go? A quick tip is that you're looking at the middle number here in the trinomial. That minus x should be what we get out if I do out by out and in by in. So out by out gives me minus 2x. In by in gives me 1x. Adding those two together, I get minus x. So that's something to keep an eye out for. A quick check is to just do out by out, in by in. Does it give me the middle term in the trinomial? If yes, then you've got the right factors. On the bottom, it's not a quadratic, so I'm asking myself, do they have any common factors? And if so, what's the highest common factor? And they do, and it's x. So x into x minus 3. Over here then I've got another quadratic, so I'm going to have x at the start of each bracket, because that's my factors of x squared. At the end of each bracket is going to be my factors of 6, so 3 and 2, but it's a minus 6, which means that it has to be 1 minus factor and 1 plus factor. Deciding which one goes where, I have to have minus x when I multiply out by out, in by in. So I'm going to actually put it on the minus 3, and I'm going to put the plus on the 2. And if I check that, x by minus 3 gives me minus 3x, 2 by x gives me 2x, minus 3x plus 2x gives us negative x. That was the target, so we know we have the right factors. And then here, what we have on the bottom is another quadratic, and I'm going to have x by x again. So put your factors of your x squared into the start of each bracket, your factors of 4 into the end of each bracket, and then we're aiming to get a positive 5 out of a positive 4, so it's just plus and plus. At this point then I'm going to look for, is there any scenarios where I have a doing, so a multiplication, and then a division. So I have x plus 1 being multiplied into the top and x plus 1 being divided in on the bottom. I also have x minus 3 being divided in and x minus 3 being multiplied in. So those are going to undo each other. And what we're left with then from here is we're going to have x minus 2 by x plus 2. And on the bottom, we're left with x into x plus 4. You can multiply it out if you wish, but that is it fully factorized and simplified.